Welcome to Photology, where photography and life meet. Welcome to episode 2, guys. And today we have great guests. Z Wade Photo from Kansas. Hello. How are you?
I'm good, Ben. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Joe Man's Land from Canada.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And our special guest today, guest of honor, Mr. Daniel Venter from the Czech Republic.
King
hey there,
of
guys.
Literature.
Cool. Thanks for having me as a guest today. Really appreciate it. You know, it was so much fun last time around. So this time around, I get to meet 2 other folks from the industry. So that's awesome. I'm probably going to ask what each does, except for you, Vahagn.
Well, we're happy to have you. This is a brand new podcast every week. Photology, not biology, not psychology. Well, it could be psychology because we go through.
The mind of the photographer is a beautiful place indeed.
That was like an evil. What was that? That
was definitely a no man's land.
David
Attenborough.
An evil David Attenborough.
Exactly. Oh boy.
So it could be psychology, but it's photology. So Daniel, what's going on, brother?
Everything. First of all, I just wanted to say thanks for having me for the second time here.
Welcome.
Everything's going pretty well. We did a recent site launch again, a refresh on my education platform, and that went off really well. It's been quite a stressing 4 months, but we've had a good team working on everything and getting all their ducks in a row as such. And it was pretty successful. So now I can calm down and start creating content galore for everyone. And we've just been plodding along.
Hey, this is so for some context from people. You're a portrait family photographer. You shoot Sony and Nikon, and also you teach.
That's right. My name right above here. Yep. Well, that's actually something else that kind of changed. I rebranded to bring it in a bit closer to my brand because everybody in the Czech Republic and a lot of other people know me as Daniel Venter rather than Shoot, Create, Captivate being the educational part of what I offer. So now we've rebranded and we've called it Photo Education by Daniel. And it kind of aligns to the rest of my branding as such. So that's been a good change, and a change that actually happened because of my social media being hacked last year.
Oh, wow. How did that happen?
The anniversary of that, and we pretty much lost all of my social media. So I had to start again. And what happened is my old Facebook business page, the domain got locked into that. So shootcreatecaptivate.com got locked into that particular domain, and I couldn't get access to it. So the only way about this was to actually do a complete rebrand and actually change the URL. So, hence the change there.
No, that's awesome, man. Me and Z Wade were having this discussion the other day about, right, Z Wade, about teaching. And
oh, yeah.
It was a pretty interesting conversation. It takes a skill.
A deflating conversation.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, on that topic, really, I actually never wanted to teach photography in the sense that I'm doing it now, and it all happened kind of by accident. And I did a little one-to-one on Skype with somebody who really wanted help. And after the session, they said, well, why don't you charge for this? And I was like, okay, do you want me to offer these services to other people? And it kind of kicked off from there. And then I got a lot of feedback, positive feedback, which sort of motivated me to go further with it and teach my particular skills to other portrait photographers out there, because it was clearly useful for other people. And that kind of just started the flow going. Right in the beginning, I have to say, it was quite a tough time listening to yourself and talking to yourself essentially when recording, say, for example, your computer screen.
Well, so you do virtual teaching, or you do on location?
Virtual, it's actually both on location and virtual. But for a lot of my sessions, I actually record my screen, so I take people through my editing process, and then the other part of it is actually out on location, where I've got somebody who records what I'm doing on location, and then we put everything together as a video tutorial that people can either purchase online or they can subscribe to. So it's been a learning journey for myself. You learn new skills, you learn to be able to communicate your message in certain ways. It's a whole different world on top of the photography. You've got to have good audio, you've got to have good videos, you've got to get your point across to people. So
that's cool, man. That's cool. So portrait photography, huh? Teaching portraits, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Z-Wade, that's a cool backdrop you got there.
Hey, thanks. We're working on it.
Yeah, Daniel, your work is splendid. Your portraits are phenomenal. I'll be flashing some examples of your work while we talk here, while we go on. But yeah, man, you're the 200 f2. You're famous for that lens.
Yes, very true. And mind you, I've probably owned, except for Fuji, I think I've owned all of the 200 f2s on the market, from the old ARS Nikon version from 1977. I upgraded from that one to the VR2, and then on top of that, I still got a second one, which was a VR1. And then on the Canon side, I have the 200 f2, and then recently purchased the 200 f1.8.
Wow, so you have them all.
What they actually know, it's actually known as the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Yeah,
the Eye of Expensive. I like it.
Actually,
but the weird thing is that I'm actually using the Canon on a Sony, which vexes some people, like all those brand loyal people, like
the purists.
The Canon on the Sony. And I'm like,
You've done what?
It's whatever works, It's whatever works.
Adapter on top of that.
Yeah, it's Z-Wade actually talked me out of, and a couple of other guys online talked me out of selling my 200 f2 VR2. I was thinking about selling it, but I'm keeping it.
Well, we're not going to see a Z version for a while, so you might as well hold on to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mind you, the 85 1.2 should be quite a nice addition to the collection.
I got mine pre-ordered. I'm waiting on it. I've been waiting for 2 years on it.
Awesome. I think Nikon really needed that 1.2 version. They've never had one, and it's good to see it's on the Z system. And
so Daniel,
I've been watching the news, obviously, in terms of who's got what, and I think the Nikon guys are going to be blessed with a Z8. Is that correct?
Highly speculated. We actually don't have any real information. We just have kind of like leaks, but the leaks are from a fairly reliable source.
Okay.
Well, a really reliable source, actually.
Super.
Yeah. This is awesome. Daniel, you're just a legend using that lens, and the background blur you produce is just quite splendid. But what I remember from our talk last time was the color matching you do in the portraits.
I don't know that anybody actually does it better than Daniel that I've seen. Like
thank you, God.
The color matching is, it's amazing what little things can do. Like if you're shooting in natural light, it's one thing, and then you introduce some flash and it makes it look that much more juicy, and then you color match and you're just like in God mode,
Yeah. I think it's one of those forgotten skills, really, when it comes to portrait photography, because a lot of us just go out there, and especially when shooting for clients, clients just turn up with whatever they want if you don't educate them initially. And this is what I found right in the beginning. It's great to have clients come and see you for their portraits, but they turn up with all kinds of colors and you've got to kind of deal with it there and then. But what I started to introduce over time was being in control and telling my clients what they should be wearing. And, once you've got a couple of shoots like that behind you and you're actually putting it out to social media, other clients are going to start seeing what kind of colors they should expect to wear. And it's also something that we communicate clearly with clients before they come to us. So we have them often splaying everything out on their beds or on the floor and going, "Hey Dan, what do you think about these color combos?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that looks good. That don't even come near me with that."
Yeah, you're talented. You're talented.
You know, actually, on top of that, you've also got another level, and that's textures of clothing articles. You know, you know, you can't mix the textures as such, because that's another important factor. You can't wear woolly clothes and then some shiny jacket.
a lot of photographers, a lot of photographers, when they go out for a portrait shoot, they don't even look at that. So that's great that you do, and you do it probably you're one of the best at it. And but Joe, you had a question for Daniel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did. So I was just backing up a little bit to when you were talking about teaching, Dan. You know, sometimes you can have like I used to be a teacher, not a photography teacher, but an English teacher, and you know they say those who cannot teach, those who cannot teach phys ed. I taught kindergarten gym class at one point. So I'm just wondering, on the subject of teaching, for you, what was like the one time you had a student come to your class and bring a camera that just, like, you know, for the most part, YouTubers, anyone that educates in the photography spaces, you can take whatever you've learned in this class and transfer to any camera you have. Like the basic concepts are there. But when was that one time you had a student potentially come to a class and brought a camera that you were just like, oh, these actually won't transfer to that camera? Did you ever have that happen?
You know, to be honest, Joe, no, I haven't. And I've actually got 3 fundamentals that I follow that do actually work on all kinds of cameras. And this is something that came up fairly recently. And I pulled out my DSLR, and I pulled out my mirrorless camera, and I pulled out my phone. And I had 3 images displayed, and people couldn't tell which was which. And the iPhone image was pretty good, and it was kind of on par, but it was based on the 3 principles: 1, having great light; 2, simplifying the colors; and 3, simplifying the framing. And just based on those 3 principles, which I kind of follow throughout my shoots, actually transfer into all sorts of cameras. In fact, one of the tutorials I recently created was with an old Nikon D70S and a very cheap 50mm 1.8 lens, which people would nowadays turn their nose up to and go, "Oh, that's a pretty rubbish camera." And I went out to the field and I captured some really lovely images in the sunflower field with my daughter. And I came back with acceptable images. But I think we put quite a lot of what's the right word? We put a lot of emphasis on the type of gear we shoot with, rather than the content of what we're shooting. And with those 3 principles, you can go so far. And like I said, I've never actually experienced a time where someone's come along with a camera so bad that I can't actually teach them anything on it.
Nice. Yeah. So you haven't had any Pentax users, so you're good to go. I'm kidding. But no, that's great. No, that's awesome. And, you know, I think that's a really good testament to your method and your teaching skills, is that, you know, anyone could take this even just to a smartphone. If you got Pro Mode on your smartphone, you can shoot full manual and you can do all those things. And, you know, that's super cool.
I tell people out in the field, whenever they ask, because we often do these meetups, and if anybody asks, you know, like, I'm thinking about upgrading and what camera should I get. In my early days, I was like, oh, I like Nikon because of this, that, and the other. But like, as I got better at photography, you know, now I'm 10 or 11 years in, I just tell them, I'm like, literally go to Best Buy. Don't buy from Best Buy. Buy from a camera store if you can. Yeah. But go to Best Buy and literally touch them all and see which one feels good in your hand. Because you can give me my very first camera, the D3200. And after 11 years, I'm going to run circles around somebody with little to no experience. Yeah. Right. And so it doesn't really matter. It's whatever feels good, you know, so feel them all. You know, as long as there's good YouTube support to help you get through the menus, you know. I wouldn't
Otherwise,
recommend
it's like Da Vinci Code. It's a codex.
I wouldn't recommend Hasselblad for a newbie. That's about where I draw the line, you know. Unless you got the money for it, then go ham.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Daniel uses an A9, right? Sony A9.
That's right.
Is your main camera, and he uses a Nikon D750 DSLR.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You know what? It's one of those cameras that I've kept with me forevermore, because it's actually one of those cameras that's been used for a great part of my career so far. I've been shooting for close on 11 years full time. I started off with the D800, and then a few years later, I think it was back in 2014 when they released the D750. That's when I got that, and I upgraded from the D800. And I've had that camera with me for a very long time, and a great part of my career. Many of my images were shot with a D750, and it's grown quite a lot of sentimental value. So, you know, even though I've upgraded to all of these other different systems, I've kept that camera more so because it's got that sentimental value.
Wait a minute. All the stuff we see on Facebook, is some of those shots are D750?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that's a great camera, but I hardly meet anybody that uses that camera.
Really?
Right?
There's a bunch of people in my area. That was like one of the hottest sellers of Nikon. I think the D750 is the reason the D710 or 610 never got any love, because the 750,
that's very true.
The 750 had the next step up of autofocus, right? So everybody gravitated towards that.
Yeah, very true. And when I actually looked at the D610 as a possible upgrade, one of the things that I did find back then was the issue with the focus points being very tightly packed together. And that was one of the drawbacks of the D610 and the D600, I think was. Because of the grouping of the focus points being very, very central, it didn't allow you to actually go out to the edges of the frame a little bit more. And that's where the D750 was quite a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one-point focus system, and but it's still quite centralized now when you compare it to the mirrorless systems, where you can literally go out to the edges. But yeah,
now that you say that, I'm kind of glad I didn't have a videographer back then, because you're right. With the D610, it probably looked like I was fighting off bees, focus and recomposing, because everything was right there in the center. So you're kind of, you know, it probably looked like I was.
Yeah, I was kind of just like really right out to the edge and then try and crop it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the D750, you never wanted to get the you never wanted to upgrade to the 780?
No, I never even considered that. You know, I think the 780 was just more, I think they added some video features into that.
It was basically like a Nikon Z6 II in a DSLR frame. If you used live view, it was basically a D610.
Yeah.
Or a Z6 II.
I did. You know what I did do? I was playing this fighting game between the Sony A7 III and the D850, and I actually got the D850, and I had it with me for about a week or so. But I had some endless problems with back focusing, and I just think there was something wrong with that particular camera. And unfortunately, it kind of lost out to the Sony A7 III. The A7 III was just like magic for me with that eye autofocusing. So I got trapped in there, and I just, you know, I'm just going to keep my D750. It does a very good job. The colors are absolutely gorgeous. It still is now.
The newer stuff we see on your Facebook, is that the Sony?
Yeah, most likely. There's some stuff there that I still share that's the D750 though. If you do bring up any of them in this session,
no, I will. We're gonna flash those pictures. But this is amazing portrait work, Daniel. Do you use eye tracking or do you use just single point?
Definitely eye tracking. And there's actually quite a couple of videos that I put out there on my Instagram showing the eye tracking, and I've got some through the viewfinder recordings. I've put this Atomos Ninja on top of my camera to give students a view of my scene, what they can kind of see what it looks like through live through the viewfinder. They can see settings and how well the tracking works.
So Z-Wade is a portrait photographer. He takes portraits, studio, bodyscape.
Awesome.
And Joe Man is more of a filmmaker. He does video and
cool.
does drone work. And these two gentlemen both have channels too, YouTube channels.
Super.
But I want to ask you something about life and where you're from. You're from the Czech Republic right now?
Yeah, in the Czech Republic. I used to live in the UK for a good couple of years, and then I met my wife, who's Czech, and we wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of the UK or London as such. And it was kind of a weird transition. I looked at the market over here, and this very little town that we moved to has got about 3,000 people, and there are some surrounding bigger towns. And I looked at the market here to find out who's who and who's the main photographers, and we just moved. My daughter had just been born, and we just moved over to the Czech Republic in 2013 and said, let's go for this. Let's try and see what will happen with photography. And I don't think I have a normal trajectory into this market like most people have. We just took the risk.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
Gave it a try. It was just to fill in people listening in. I started back in 2013 full time, and I didn't have any backups other than the fact that my wife spoke Czech, so she could do a lot of the translations. But when we got here back in March 2013, we're on our 10-year anniversary now. We got here and we set aside a lot of time in terms of launching our brand as such, and launching me, who I am, and what do I do. So my wife Eva spoke to a lot of the local people that she knew and a lot of friends and said, Dan's a photographer, or he's having a go at photography. Maybe you could give him support and book him with a shoot or two. And that's kind of how things rolled from that point on. And here we are 10 years later as a full-time photographer and educator.
So
Dan, sorry, go ahead, Z-Wade.
I was going to say, so how long in total have you been shooting photography?
So in total, well, before I started full-time, I would say I'd spent 2-3 years prior to moving, just finding my way around photography, nothing really serious. While being in the UK, I shot for a few people, but nothing really eventful. I had a normal day job then, probably like most people, just had it as like a little side hustle or just something to play around with in the weekends. And from that 2 or 3 years prior experience, I just thought, I really like this. I caught that shutterbug, that cliche saying, and I just went for it.
The reason I ask is because there's something unique. I mean, nobody should be as good as you at like 10 years. It's like your images are like, well, it's like I have this color chart. I can't get anybody to listen to me. I don't shoot professionally anymore. I won't take any work. I don't want to work anymore. I just want to shoot for my channel and do the stuff I want to do. But like this kind of thing is like fairly new to me, and as far as like my editing style wasn't even really established until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Right. And so you're on this like insane level with like your shooting and your post-processing. And so I just like want everybody to like know that it like you're just kind of naturally good if we've been shooting the same amount of time, and you're just like in the stratosphere with what you produce.
Thank you so much, Wade. It's really, really appreciated. I think for me, it's come down to actually dedicating so many hours to this craft. And this is the key thing. When you put that passion and you actually act upon it, that's when you start seeing that progression. And you've got to be really self-critical at the same time, understanding what went wrong. How can you correct it? How can I make something look better? When it comes down to the light, how do we get better light? Oh yeah, I can add in strobes, I kind of went really the reverse side of things. I started off with strobes because I found it easy to get the light I wanted. And then it sort of transformed from capturing everything in or capturing everything with strobes to moving on to natural light. And it's when I discovered the essence of natural light that it kind of took me on this new journey, and it unlocked colors. Because I was shooting in the soft light, I said to myself, well, if I'm shooting in the soft light patterns, how does that affect the colors that my clients are wearing? And then I discovered, well, if they got white and crazy colors, I mean, if they got these luminescent colors or fluorescent colors and these bright colors in these soft light patterns, it kind of doesn't align. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how can I improve color? So I transformed myself over time, understanding light initially, and then understanding how colors work into that process.
So let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. Well, what do you say to the photographer that says, you shoot natural light, you don't know how to flash, you don't know how to light? What do you say to that?
What I say to them is refer to my old work when I was shooting flash. It is true. No. I show them up. I've had this I've seen this a lot of times. A lot of the community says that you're only a natural light photographer because you don't understand how to use flash. Now, while that is true to a degree for quite a couple of people out there who don't know how to use flash, I'm probably one of the exceptions to the rule, where I started with flash, and then I discovered that the scenarios that I was putting myself in terms of getting good overall ambient light and then adding in flash actually put me in a situation where I actually had good light on my subjects already. And there was a few times when my flash wouldn't go off, and then I'd just raise the exposure in post-process, and I'd say, but hang on a minute, my subject's actually got a catch lights in the eye, or they got catch lights in their eyes, and the light is actually coming across them at a natural angle, which creates that shape and dimension in them. And I thought, well, hang on a minute, if I switch this flash off now for the next couple of shots, what is that going to translate at? What is that going to look like? And I discovered,
gorgeous.
Of light around us, and there's so many opportunities to shoot in natural light that I don't have to actually bring out my strobe gear. I think the other reason why I changed from flash to working in natural light was the dynamics that we had in our shoots. Now, the first thing that I had an issue was with the language barrier, being able to communicate with clients. So my wife would be coming along to shoots with me and translating my intentions to the clients. And she'd be the one running around with a strobe and softbox and the battery pack over her shoulder, running around after the kiddos and the family shoots. And then she'd be trying to communicate what I want them to do. And then she'd be getting them into the focus or focal plane, and she'd be doing wardrobes, and became quite a chore for her every time she went out. And I said, you know what, I need to lighten this load, and I need to find ways in which we can have a more flowing and dynamic situation with our families, so she wouldn't have to worry about holding on to the flash and the stand and umbrella and making sure the wind wouldn't blow it over and those types of things. We just wanted to have this nice flowing means of shooting, where she would only have to communicate to them what they had to do, or she could focus on fixing little wardrobe malfunctions and also generally communicating ideas with clients. So that changed us away from working with strobes more into a natural light scenario. And then I discovered all of these different locations and opportunities.
But I have a question. When you go out for a shoot, do you take both, or do you just do one, or do you know what you're gonna do?
Yeah,
you
very
take
much.
Both? You take the softbox and the flash as well?
No, I don't even take it out anymore. They don't go along to shoots with me because I've got set locations where I know at particular times of the day the light is just going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's you know, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, but you're kind of limiting yourself to particular times of the day or particular locations. That's fine. You know, maybe I am. But the important thing is that as a portrait photographer, and I'm going to sort of exclude weddings as such here, as a portrait photographer, if I've got a family coming to me, if I've got a maternity session that I'm going to be doing, I've got control over specific times and over the specific aesthetic that I want to create. I'm the artist, you know. And if somebody wants my particular style or my kind of look, they're going to appreciate when I want to shoot and where I want to shoot. And I've never had somebody say, "Oh, this is an awful location," you know, because they know. Yeah,
go ahead, Joe. Go. Just
sorry,
jump in, Joe. Yeah, just jump in, man.
Cool. Yeah, sorry. I was just going to segue off portraiture for 1 second. I'm sort of I do a lot of street photography. That's something I'm always doing, not necessarily for like paid work, just for a good time. And I was just wondering, like, if you ever do streetscape just for fun, and if so, where you liked it more. Did you like it more in London, or do you like it more in the Czech Republic?
You know, street photography as such, I'm not really focused any attention on that side of things. You know, when we used to come over to the Czech Republic on holiday, I'd say Prague was a beautiful city. So it gave me a lot of opportunities just to shoot lovely buildings and shoot these little, you know, street photographers type or style of shooting. Yeah, definitely. Both cities were pretty nice to shoot. And I think in my earlier days when I was practicing, I used to just pack my camera gear and actually head to London and go and photograph the streets there, you know, understand composition, understand lighting patterns. And I think it really helped me develop a sense of what I was doing with the camera, because you kind of naturally put yourself into these different situations, different light situations, bright, sunny, soft light, shade, everything. So that probably helped me in the beginning.
What's easier, street photography or portraits for you?
Portrait for sure. Yeah, I think I look at it a little bit differently, because I'm looking at the artistic value in that, you know, how I'm styling the clients, the type of locations I put them in, the lighting patterns as such. I do a lot of themed work with my daughter. So, you know, we dress her as Little Red Riding Hood, for example, or Alice in Wonderland. And we kind of go down those routes just to get creatively inspired with these different scenarios. You know, I think my last shoot with my daughter last year, we took her out into a sunflower field, and we used a complementary color palette there, where she had a blue top on and jeans, and she was there in the yellow sunflowers. And it was just an opportunity to get creative with colors, and to at that time use the D70S camera and put it through its paces. That was crazy. You know what, guys? Talk about those little compact flash cards. I actually put one of those into that camera, and I could shoot 5,000 JPEGs on that one card.
No, yes. Just in case nobody knows what he's talking about this. She was wearing a blue shirt and the sunflowers were yellow. This is like basic stuff that like nobody knows, and it's gorgeous and amazing.
That's cool. Like
that's a beautiful thing about what you're doing, is like you have control. Like when people come to you, they want your style, and if they want your style, you say, this is the color I want you to wear, because this is where I'd like to shoot you. You know, you've been there, you've done it, you've already killed it 1,000 times over. And so people are like, boom, we're listening because we want your style. That is a beautiful place to be in.
And that's another thing that I try to put forth in my education. You know, I want people to take control as artists. You know, we're not just run of the mill, you know, next client, you know, we're not this sort of production line where we just get people in and out. You know, you got to take a bit of pride in what you do.
I want to comment. No, I get it. I just want to comment on your work real quick. You have a signature look. It's a signature style that I can pretty much, like, if I look at a portrait by Daniel Venter, I know it's a portrait by Daniel Venter. It's that look that you have, is that look, I mean, you spend a lot of time on Lightroom, right? You pretty much know what you're doing with editing softwares and stuff.
Yeah, it's a like combination of Lightroom and Photoshop, and the whole style really starts at what happens at the shoot level. Now, I've been practicing quite a lot over the last couple of years, and I've got to a point where, surprisingly, mirrorless has actually helped me establish a very good out-of-camera result before I take it into Lightroom and Photoshop. And I've got this basis already there where I've shot for a distraction-free background. I've made sure that the lighting is right and it's creating the natural softness in the image right out of the camera. And that comes down to the lighting patterns again. And then obviously making sure that everybody's got the right colors on and the colors are harmonious with regards to the background. And that sets me up already for the rest of the process, where I would look at the macro details when it comes to the post-production. So if there was, for example, this is going to sound crazy, if there was like a leaf out of place, or there was a lot of rubbish on the ground that didn't need to be there, I'd go in and edit out all of those little distracting elements. And I've got a really methodical way of going through my process. So I'd, for example, bring my image into Lightroom and I'd analyze some of the very basics. So if you're accustomed or know what I'm talking about, when we go into Lightroom, we've got the development module, and I can kind of see the theory of why Adobe has got those sliders in that order. You start at the top and you've got white balance, and then the others work with your exposure and your contrast and everything there. And I work through those systematically as a basis for the first level of my correction. And that already gives me a sellable image as such, or at least an image I can actually send to my clients as a proof. And then they'll come back to me with the specific images that they want. And then I would take those particular images and put them into Photoshop, and then look at getting rid of something that might not need to be there, distracting object or distracting color. And then I'd start tying up the frame. And it really is as simple as that. And then I've got this other little lever on top of that, where I actually accentuate the light patterns that are already there in what I call a dodge and burn process. It's not a dodge and burn process that everybody knows in terms of skin retouching, but this is more of a accentuating the highlights and accentuating the shadows in an image and creating that dimension. And that's kind of where that part of the magic happens as such.
Typically, how long do you spend on a photo? I know it depends, but your average time editing a photo.
If I took the average time there, I would say anything between 5 and 15 minutes. And it really depends on the level of or how I actually captured the shot. But yeah, if I'm going at speed, I would say maybe 15 minutes in an image.
That's about right for me. Yeah,
sometimes I'll get a little bit anal and I'll go, oh yeah, you know what, this one might deserve half an hour. But then I stop beating myself up and I'm going to ask myself, well, what the heck did I do in the shoot and not notice while that was there? Or I think the extent of time the edit come in where you've got someone with a silly expression, and I might have to do like a head swap or something like that. But
I'm not going that far. That one gets thrown out.
Yeah,
a head swap.
The delete button is a powerful weapon.
So, how much of your look is a result of editing, or just straight from the camera?
So if I look at the look, I would say it's a lot hinged on the shoot process. I would even go as far as to say it's like a 70% shoot process, and then the 30% would be the editing on that.
What do you say to people when they say, I don't like editing, I just the image has got to be clean, like no editing? You know, the purist out there?
Yeah, I know. Look, I think we all have different levels of experience and different levels of expectations. Now, if somebody wants to be a purist, that's entirely up to them. And I think we should all just stay in our lanes, to be honest. You know, if somebody likes editing a lot, let them edit a lot. If somebody doesn't like editing, hey, so what? You know, it's,
yeah,
it's
I love that. Everybody stay in their lane. YouTube, the YouTube comment section would be a different place if people would stay in their lane.
No, that is, yeah, I totally agree. And you see some of those comments that you see on these channels, like, whoo, this is crazy. No, I you know, when I started out and I put my work out there was lots of varying comments, and some of them were like, oh, am I really doing the right thing here? Am I really taking the right approach to my own creative style?
Do you remember one comment?
Like say, for example, oh, your backgrounds are too blurred. It's jarring. Okay. Oh, yeah. Do you know the 200 f2? No, I've never shot it before. Well, go and
sorry for the creamy bokeh.
Yeah. It's one of those things like, I don't like it. It looks too artificial. It looks like you've pasted people on there. And when I shot like this in the beginning, I found it a little bit disconcerting, and I thought, oh, maybe I am doing the wrong thing here. But then I thought to myself, you know what? This is my style. This is the way I like it. This is my creative interpretation. You know, if you can't see any details in the background, who cares? That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm also entitled to my artwork and my expression. You know, I want to have my backgrounds a color palette as such that complements my subjects. I mean, that makes more sense to me as the creator. I'm creating this color harmony. I haven't got distracting bokeh balls. I haven't got distracting objects in the background. This is my style. This is what I like. And this is what people will start recognizing me for. And like Vahagn said, you know, you can identify with my work right away. You can pick it out from the crowd. And a lot of people say that to me. Oh, Dan, before I actually saw your name and saw who posted it, I knew it was your shot.
Yep.
And that's a good thing, especially when it comes to branding yourself as a photographer, having a certain look and style. I remember when I looked at all the different creators out in the market, and I'm talking about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more. There was that guy, Sean Gannon, I think. He had a very distinct look of these lovely models in these grungy textured backgrounds. And when you looked for, no, sure, it wasn't Gannon, sorry. I'd have to search on YouTube.
Is it Joel Grimes?
No, not Joel Grimes. Let me just have a look at Sean.
It's me. I'm kidding. You know, the thing I'm really enjoying about this, Daniel, is I've never met someone that was like the human antonym of me when it comes to a photographer. You're so organized, polished, like you actually planned your shots. That's great. I have something to aspire to here, because like when I go out, I'm just like running, gunning, like there's no plan whatsoever. And there is no consistent thread with my editing. Like when someone looks at my photo, it could have been taken by anyone. Like it changes every single time. So I think you've already outlined something that I'm going to practice, which is consistency, trying to find like, you know, like what is sort of your vision? What is the way that you look at things, and how do you express that in a visual representation? How do you put that in an image?
Yeah, very true. Thank you. Yeah. And I think it's important that clients understand what they're going to get, because I see a lot of portfolios out there that's got a mixture of all kinds of styles. You know, somebody might have black and white, and then next minute they've got a whole bunch of color images, and then they've got vignettes, and then they've got all of these different styles. And when you are a business focused photographer, and I think this is also something that I will touch on in a moment, because I did a little survey recently to find out who's hobbyists and who's part-time photographers and who full-time photographers are. And that translates how we envision our work. Now, I wanted my clients to know what they're getting, so I had to be consistent. I had to do things in a certain way to attract the audience that I want and the clients I want. And that is actually a very important thing when you do this as a full-time business, because it really changes the trajectory of your offering. You get what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, if you're doing it as a part-time hobby and it's something you're doing for yourself, yeah, you know, you might go through all these swings of different styles and different editing and just doing things different. You eventually find what you enjoy the most too, if you do it enough.
D-Haze. I enjoy D-Haze.
D-Haze. Yeah.
Daniel, I really like the fact that you said, I don't care. You know, I'm shooting to what I like. If you think this is not photography or whatever, I don't care. I like what I like, and buzz off.
It kind of echoes again. It echoes again. And it's not a case of being arrogant, because I think sometimes we need to take in the critique that we get. And it depends, of course, on your level of knowledge. Photographers wear their heart on their sleeve, really. So when we get these negative comments, all these awkward comments, you know, we kind of feel despondent about it, and we feel down that our work is maybe not good. Somebody like myself, who's had all sorts of comments through the years, you grow a hard shell to it, and you kind of say, like, guys, stay in your lane. You know, that's your style. If you're happy, you go and carry on. This is my style. This is my work. That, on the other hand, might break down somebody who's just starting out.
Hey, people are going to ask. People are going to ask in the chat. People that you know, first time being introduced by you and your work. Where's your main? Is it your website? Is it your Instagram? Because I know you have a YouTube channel. I'm not sure. I know you have an Instagram and a Facebook that's strong. I'm not sure. Do you have a YouTube channel?
Who, me? Yeah. Yeah, I've got a very low level YouTube channel, and it is, I don't know. I'll have to send you the link, guys.
Yeah, send me the link. What I'm gonna do is put it in the description. So your everything that's updated, your IG, your website.
Yeah.
I know, just put in Daniel Venter Photography on Google and you'll come up. So
probably,
but no, that's really cool. Well, I have a question about teaching, and is it profitable right now? Like, do you make money, or is it just like, is it tough right now, the teaching part of photography?
No, the teaching part is something that I'm focusing on a lot of my time, as well as shooting for clients. But my main focus is actually on the teaching side of things, because I feel that there's this massive need for people like myself on the market. People need to, you know, we going into a creator's world, essentially. Content creation is the buzz now. So more people are climbing on board this as a hobby and a craft, and something that they can make money out of. So it's a very good place. I enjoy teaching, and it is profitable, and it makes a living for me and my family. So naturally, it's something that I want to share more. You know, it's not, for me, it's not just about the income of cash. It's being able to share those experiences and empower and teach people to be better people. You know, I think the other aspect of my teaching is giving people hope and something to aim for and goals, because, you know, we don't want to be just sitting in our dead-end day job. And just coming back to this little survey that I did recently, 47% of my current audience are actually hobbyist photographers. 34% are part-time photographers, and only mere 90% of my current audience in my membership are actually full-time photographers. So that's kind of telling. People don't want to jump into that world of doing it full-time. So they hold themselves back because they don't think it's a profitable market.
Yeah.
But we're in a content creators world now, where companies are looking for videographers, looking for people who can create awesome content for them. They're looking for these photography influencers. And it's a content-driven world now. So we should be reveling in these opportunities.
I love it.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no excuses. I mean, we can take our passion and turn it into an income, but enjoying it at the same time. When you start pursuing it too much for the monetary gain, then you lose that passion. Then it becomes, then you might as well just go back to a day job. But I'm doing
I totally know what you mean on that, Daniel, because it's the same thing for my, oh, sorry, never mind.
Yeah. You know, I know that what I'm putting out there is helping someone to better themselves. That self-improvement, get yourself out of that dead-end day job. Be the creator you want to be. And that's what I'm trying to inspire people to do via my training platform. So go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. All I was going to say was also as well, you know, for myself at least, I'm blessed I get to do both in my job, right? You know, that was one of my skill sets that I honed while I was living overseas. Teaching was the ability to be a content creator, but also a marketer, right? And I think the piece that you were saying about balance is very important. You know, at least for myself, I find if I only work on my marketing projects at work, even though it might be involving photography, videography, digital ads, things that I love, if I'm only pouring my energy into that, my creativity takes a really big hit, even on those projects. So that's really, at least for me, where my YouTube channel came in, was like, okay, I'm going to practice these videography skills in my spare time, do other side projects, do those things, and, you know, keep fostering that creativity, so that way then when I do go to sit down on my computer for a project for work, I'm like, oh man, I got this whole other idea that I didn't even think about yesterday. Why don't I try doing it this way? So it's not just always the same, you know, cookie cutter approach every time you look at the same sort of project.
Hey Daniel, is the teaching part, is it like on location somewhere with a group of people, or is it your one-on-one, or how is it?
I do one-on-one over Skype, but a lot of what I create is actually pre-recorded content that I put out on my platform, and
that's great.
It literally takes people through my entire process. So we'll do a recording session of being on location in some of the tutorials, and then I actually talk on camera to people as if it was a live session and say, look, okay, this is where I'm gauging the light for this particular location. Here is our subjects. This is how we've styled them. And this is the approach that I'm going for in this shoot. And they'll get this general sense of how I work with clients behind the scenes. And they'll get the full experience, really, of what it's like, you know. And then we'll head back to the editing station, and I'll go through the creative process in terms of post-process. So they're getting the full experience, really. Just
so they're courses, or is it streaming, or how is it? Like,
yeah, okay, so how it's actually set up at the moment, like I said, everything is pre-recorded, and then I upload it to my platform. So people who are signed up to my membership will get access to those tutorials. So they'll log into their platform and they'll start watching on-demand video, basically streaming video content.
Oh, nice. And the membership is via what? Facebook, YouTube, Instagram?
No, I've actually got my own platform. I've actually got my own platform created. So
it's a website. So they go to the website, they subscribe,
they go to my website, and then they'll log in and they'll have access to all of the tutorials. Now, it's something that I've been working hard on over the last couple of years. I started the education part of my craft back in 2018, and it kind of started off very small, low level. In fact, back then I was using Squarespace as my platform of choice. And then I started figuring out that there was quite a lot of limitations in terms of the delivery of the content. So I was concentrating on how do I effectively teach people, how do I effectively market, and that was a whole learning experience. It's a whole different level. You know, it's on top of having a photography business, and you got to learn all of these new skills of actually creating content that's going to teach people. So we moved on from Squarespace, and I had some Canadian company build a new platform which kind of linked in with Vimeo in the back end, and you'd have to purchase a course, and then that would connect them into the platform where they could watch the video. It'll all be streamed inside their account. And now, the beginning of this month, we relaunched and
DanielVenter.com. I'll put the links in the description.
Yeah. So this will be. Have we got a chat here where I can actually? I'll type this into the chat. Will you see it?
Oh, no, I'll put it in the description when you send it to me.
Yeah. Okay.
That's interesting.
So photo education by Daniel.com.
It's funny you say that about like starting on Squarespace. I'm actually shutting down I still have my favorite shots at any given time are still on my Squarespace, but as far as like the shops for like the prints and the e-products and stuff, I'm about to just shut all of that down because like it's just too limiting. Like if I want to give somebody like a 15% discount, right, for being a member on my channel, it's just, you were saying that there's limitations, and that's so true, and so you might as, I don't make that many sales, so I might as well just do it on my own, hustle my own products, because I'm not trying to be like a big brand right now, and so I think it's really smart that you said, no, we're doing this, it's original to my brand, and so you made a website built around working exactly the way that works for you and your customers. And that's businessman stuff. That's not photographer stuff.
And it's really unlocked a lot of, it's opened me to a different world as such. Just being an educator in this space, and a lot of it was to do with presentation skills as such, and being able to communicate a message in an effective way. And I remember in the beginning, if I go back to my old videos, I'm like, oh God, that's cringeworthy now. Listening to myself with the ums and the ahs and not really getting to the point. You develop a sense of actually communicating with your voice in a certain way. And the way I am now is actually quite a lot different to what I was before.
Hey guys, it's photo education by Daniel. I'll put it in the screen. There.com. Photo education by Daniel.com.
Yeah.
So good thing this is a premiere. Vahagn's
on a side note, guys, just taking a quick side note. Did you guys hear about the big news about DP Review today and Chris Nichols and the other fella heading over to Petapixel? What do you guys think of that?
That was kind of like a surprise, and I actually didn't know anything about the back end structure of their review platform. I thought it was just something that these guys established and it was their own platform. I didn't realize that actually Amazon had their dibs on that.
Oh yeah,
it's like crazy. I was like getting confused with what people were saying. It was like, what are you talking about Amazon? What do you mean? What are you talking about money here and payoffs and layoffs and like, huh? I thought this was two guys, genuine guys who did reviews. But
I did too, because they used to work for like a camera store, and then I thought
the camera store.
Yeah, and then I thought they went off to do their own thing, and that's what DP Review was. So I feel like I've been lied to for 10 years.
Oh no.
No, it is a shame. These things happen, these changes happen, but I guess them teaming up with Petapixel would be sort of a natural progression for them. I don't know if they're going to have the same type of audience because, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about them.
My thoughts is I used to visit the forums. I think they're shutting down the forums, right, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, the whole site's going down.
Yeah, I think this is where the reason why most people are griping.
But the YouTube channel is still going to go.
No, their YouTube
channel's getting shut down too. I think the whole thing's getting stopped full, completely.
I think,
at least that's what I heard.
Yeah. Wow. From what I saw now recently, the two guys are going to team up with Petapixel, like you said, Joe, and then they're going to be moving on and doing their own things.
So Nichols is unemployed?
It happened.
That's funny enough. Actually, their channel came up on my radar when they did the interview, or they did a shoot with that Irina Rudnik, that other natural light photographer, and they were talking about the Eye of Sauron, the 200 f1.8, and I saw that video, and that's kind of the last time I actually tuned into their YouTube channel, and that inspired me to go and search for the 200 f1.8.
Wait a minute, that Canon 1.8, what is it? What's the nickname of it?
The Eye of Sauron.
Sauron?
Yeah.
I think it's Sauron.
It's a precious.
Yes.
Do you not know what that is, Vahagn?
Well,
the Eye of Sauron?
Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
The big
they actually mentioned it in that video.
The big demon eyes, just like, I want to suck your soul. And you're just like, oh my God.
Funny enough,
details in this image.
Talking about those two lenses, when I actually compare it to the 200 f2 counterparts, one would naturally think that there's going to be a lot more light transmission at 1.8, but it's actually far from it. The 1.8 has a lot less light transmission than the f2 version. If I had to compare them side by side, I would say the f1.8 at f1.8 is like shooting the f2 at f2.2.
I wonder if has something to do, like so at least in the old days of lens manufacturing, it's like the more glass pieces you had, the worse the quality of the image would theoretically be, because each piece of glass that it hits, it destroys the quality of your light a little bit. So if the f2 has less glass, maybe that's why it just seems like it's kind of
brighter lens. Yeah. So, because I naturally, when I went out, I was all excited about f1.8, and I found myself actually having to click down a little bit with my shutter in order to get the same light transmission compared to the 200 f2. So, for example, in many of the locations that I shoot, I'd be shooting at, say, for example, 1/500th of a second at f2. That would help me avoid any kind of inherent shake and stuff like that. I've got this little formula where I'm shooting at a shutter speed which is 2 times the focal length of the lens that I'm using as a starting point to get nice, crisp, sharp images. Sort of like my little formula, go-to formula. And I was finding that with this particular lens, I'd have to be at 1/400th of a second at f1.8 to get the same exposure as the f2 at 1/500th of a second. So yeah, it's definitely the light transmission was very different.
That kind of makes sense, because whenever I finally totally started transitioning from F mount to Z mount, I had this thought in the back of my head, and I couldn't really explain what it was, but I was feeling like f1.8 with the Z mount seems different than 1.8 with the F mount. Like I feel like, I mean, if the aperture is the aperture and the shutter speed is the shutter speed, but I felt like I was consistently, I just felt like the Z lenses with the Z cameras were just brighter. And so I felt like I was shooting at higher shutter speeds, which is cool. That's fine. Yeah. But it was just different. Like I would pick up my camera and I'd be like, wait a second, I know this scene. I've shot this scene 100 times, you know, and now all of a sudden it's different. You know,
but that's the kind of thing that starts to happen when you shoot off and you see these little nuances, and that echoes back to my progression, was understanding what those little nuances were, because I was consistently putting myself in the same lighting situation. So I was able to gather this kind of data and be able to go back on it and go, oh yeah, okay, so that shutter speed, my ISO would be this, and you start understanding your locations a lot better through shooting often, if that makes sense.
I have a question for you. Do you like the Nikon excuse me, do you like the Nikon 200 f2 better or the Canon 200 f2? Which lens?
You know, the two perform quite well.
What are some of the differences?
Sorry?
Any differences?
Not anything that's majorly noticeable, to be honest.
Wow.
If I compared the Canon, the latest Canon 200 f2 against the Nikon VR2 version, you don't really see those differences. I think when you see differences, it's more to do with the aesthetic that the camera is creating in terms of colors.
In terms of colors, what produces better colors to you out of camera? The Nikon Z. I mean, I keep saying Z. The Nikon D750 or the Sony A9?
You know, I've gone back on a lot of my previous shoots, and I've got this tendency to say that the Nikon colors are very nice in terms of the skin tones. There is a little bit of a lack on that side in terms of the Sony system, but I can make them emulate each other just with a bit of process. But I have to say that the Sony A9, I think the reason why I actually like that particular camera more than the other Sonys out there is because its color profile is a little bit closer to the Nikon D750. So I could actually shoot those two cameras side by side in the shoot, and I wouldn't have to do too much outside of the box, essentially, in order for the Sony A9 to look like the D750.
Nikon has a perfect opportunity right here to take the advice that everybody has been getting them. Nikon, if you listen, Daniel is a perfect candidate to just give a Z8 or a Z9 to, because he is so talented that is going to do wonders for your brand. Just send him one, please.
That would be marvelous.
And instead, he will receive a Z30.
Yeah, just test him out. Like, it's Z750. Like, just send him one of those. See how he gets on.
Did you see what he did? I like the way Daniel said that'll be marvelous.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't mind, honestly. And I think I said this in our previous meeting, is that I'm not really a
gear guy,
brand centric person when it comes to cameras. I like them all. I test them all. I've been through so many brands. I mean, just in the last 3 years, I've had my hands on the Leica SL2, the Canon EOS R5, and they all had their own little niggles, which I didn't personally like, so they didn't last in my little ecosystem here. The SL2 Leica had, if I had the ideal camera system, it would be a Leica with the Sony AF system. I know that sounds crazy, but
you're the perfect example of me and Z-Way talked about this, in the past. You're the perfect example of an artist who the brands are afterthought. Like, no, that's why I had to ask you again. I go, wait a minute, do you use Canon? Do you use Sony? I forgot. So I don't think about that when I look at your art. So that's what we were talking about, me and Z-Wade, about that.
Yeah, I also said that talent does not correlate at all to opportunity. So I think you're a beautiful candidate for any of these brands to be like, look, we want you on our team because you understand the color and all the little intricacies and the accoutrements of like a perfect shot. Yeah. I mean, right there. I feel like you're the perfect candidate, but instead,
thank you.
It's like they give it to hacks, or whatever.
And after this call, Daniel gets a nice endorsement from Metabone, so he can mount every non-brand lens on every Nikon ever, antagonizing the Canon and Fuji communities.
Jeez, man, I'm like peeing for a bunch of people.
That's what he does. You mount those lenses. I mean, all of them, except the F mount. But I mean, you mount the Canon to the Sony
with the Sigma MC11. Sigma, like, geez, dude.
you use with a Sigma adapter?
Yeah, not even Metabones. It's a Sigma MC11. And it was kind of a weird situation at the time. Some of my experience there in terms of actually adapting the Canon 200 f2 to the Sony came from Manny Ortiz. He did that little stunt once on his YouTube channel, and I got hold of him. I said, well, what's the performance like? Is there any sort of drawbacks on this? And he said, yeah, you might have a little bit of hunting when you go right to the edges of the frame, and there'd be a little bit of difficulty there. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna wing it and get a Canon 200 f2. and I got the MC11 adapter and I put it on and I was like, oh wow, this is pretty good. 200 f2 and eye autofocusing and and off I went. And one of the drawbacks I initially had is I didn't have the Sony A9 at the time. I had a Sony A7 III, and I whacked on the MC11 and I had the 200 f2 on there. And for a static scene, it was absolutely fine. And then it got messy when it started, when you started using AFC and trying to track a subject. You couldn't fire off 10 frames a second, for example, and get every one of those frames in focus. It would focus on that first frame, and then the preceding frames after that, it would lose focus. It wouldn't be able to track it. And it was a bit of a drawback at the time that I couldn't actually track motion. And the only way I could actually get around that was going for the Sony A9, which has got the 20 FPS shutter. But if you set it to mechanical and 10 FPS, you actually get that tracking, that focus tracking. So in AFC, you can actually track and fire off and get focus, acquire focus each time that subject moves. So you'd have that full autofocus tracking ability, which you wouldn't have on like the A7 III.
So you just fried my brain. That confused me a little bit.
Yeah, so I got a question. Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so were you just like talking about like when you step back the frames per second, then you don't seem to have a problem with the focusing, of like the adapting the lenses.
Exactly. The camera would have the ability to judge where the subject is in the frame. That was the limitation specific to the MC11 and adapting the Canon 200 f2 to the A9.
And as a portrait photographer, you probably don't even need 20 frames a second, whatever.
No, well, I'm happy with 10 frames a second. I'm happy with 5 frames a second.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
1 frame per second.
Yeah.
But I have a question. After the 200 f2, you take that to every portrait shoot, or do you have if it's not the 200 f2, what is it?
So if it's not the 200 f2, the collection of lenses that I use in a shoot will be 35 1.2 Sigma Art, and then it would be the 50 1.4 Sigma Art, 105 1.4.
Oh, you have
135 1.8, and they're all Sigmas. And
oh, they are.
I'm not a Sigma ambassador.
You just like this stuff, yeah.
I just like the lenses, and I think for me, that as a person who shoots wide open often, I want to have lenses that perform, and it just happened to be Sigmas. And I think it was also a little bit more of the cost factor. I didn't really want to necessarily go for example, the 135mm f 1.8 GM or f2 GM, whatever it is. The Sony glass was a bit out of my price range.
Interesting.
But yeah, those are the lenses that I use outside of the 200 f2.
Joe, go for it. I know every time you hit the unmute button, I know.
All right, Daniel, you're stranded on an island. You have 3 lenses in your bag, but you have to get rid of everything except one for food. And you're going to shoot with that lens stuck on that island for the rest of your life. It's going to be portraitures of lizards and crabs. What lens would you pick to use forever, and why?
85mm.
Over the 200 f2?
Yeah. Wow. Surprisingly. I think it gives me a nice compressed view, and it's got a little bit of reach that works in quite a lot of scenarios.
Hey, real
I'm
quick,
looking at this from a portrait photographer's
yeah, I know that. That's why
if I was a landscape guy, then I would say, yeah, okay, 35 1.2 all day long. But my perception is skewed in that sense because I'm a portrait photographer. So 85 1.8 would be something that I would go for.
That's why I was surprised you didn't say 200 f2. That's your signature lens. But
yes.
you know, that's cool. I just want to know your favorite, like when you shoot portraits, do you like to shoot from above, below, the look? Like, what's your favorite stance to take?
Yeah, okay, so in terms, that's a very good question, because this kind of affects the aesthetic of my images. Now, I kind of like working from waist level and below. And that helps me kind of maximize that separation of my subjects from a background. Okay. If I start shooting down on someone, I'm actually seeing a larger area of in focus elements in a shot. Whereas if I duck down low, I'm also able to hide certain things that I don't want in a scene a little bit easier. I kind of move around in that respect, really, to get the cleanest frame possible. But I do find myself having this tendency to shoot waist level because you're kind of getting a very upright view of subjects, and it kind of changes that aesthetic look to the image, if you know what I mean.
Well, I like I like
shooting up on someone. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I like the lower whenever just slightly, because I'm super short, and so it's no problem. But even if I'm on an elevation, I'll generally switch sides.
Really? How short are you?
I'm like 5'6" wearing shoes. But I feel that whenever, like, if I get on top of somebody, even just slightly, I feel like the vibe becomes a little submissive. But if you just get down a little bit, it gives them like a little bit of power and the perspective. Not that anybody might notice, but that's how I that's the vibe I get whenever I'm shooting.
Plus, the models look taller when you're lower. You know.
Well, depends if you go very low. If I shoot, for example, from waist level, that sounds low, but you're actually at eye level. Essentially, it's balanced. You know, it's not. How can I put it? If you start shooting from an upward position, like you say, you get that submissive feel to it. If you shoot too low, you're putting power to your subjects. Now that can work in different situations, okay? But where I'm shooting like that, I'm giving a person a fuller look to it and a certain presence to that image. And I think it also changes when you start using longer lenses, because it gives you that natural presence and fullness as such, and a compression of the background, of course.
Z-Wade, if you're planning
even with a long lens, I shoot slightly from above. Even with a long lens shooting from above, it still makes them feel or appear fuller.
Z-Wade, if you're planning on shooting low to high.
So if I shot, for example, with a 35 looking down, that's going to definitely make them a lot shorter.
It's going to make their head big too, if you're close enough.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. I think it also helps a lot with mitigating some of a lens's natural distortion. Like, for example, I went to Croatia on vacation last year, and I did some portraits of my daughter with the 35 1.2, which is a lens that I don't generally associate my style with. But when I got down to a certain level and I framed her up in a particular portion of the rule of thirds in my frame, it actually turned out very nice. There was not the distortion I was expecting. It's when you get into these awkward positions with these wide angle lenses that it starts to make people's heads look big. Or their feet look huge and stuff.
I don't shoot 35. 35 is probably the widest I'll go for any type of portrait.
And I wouldn't shoot the 35. I wouldn't shoot a headshot necessarily.
No. But hey, sometimes when I shoot headshots, I like to shoot from above, like if it's a female. But a friend told me that never shoot a male, never shoot a groom from above.
That's a good point. I mean, it does give off a vibe like it's almost like a lack of power. If you just I mean, and it's seriously like just a couple of degrees, not where it's like looking at them like this, but I'm talking just like this. It just gives a slight bit of power to the model. I mean, I don't know if anybody else, if the viewers see it, but for me, I kind of care about 80% about what I think about the framing, and I just trust that they'll like it. Like, I don't, you know.
Donald Trump's photographer was 2 feet tall, so he's got that power in all of his images. Straight up.
I'm pretty sure he's tall anyway.
I'm the tallest in the world. No one's taller than me. Okay.
Hey, how's life in the Czech Republic? How's life in general?
You know what? It's actually really been good. I still don't know the language here. That's I still rely on my wife quite heavily in terms of communications there, but I'm learning the language slowly but surely. I can get the gist of what's going on. We've been here now. It's our 10-year anniversary this month of being in the Czech Republic, and nice. We are now moving on to our own place. I've been living with Evan and the parents in this double-story house, and we want to get our own place now and start settling down and just focusing on our own lives. It's kind of a challenge to live with parents as such. It's going to sound embarrassing, but we've got to this point now where we've managed to secure a mortgage, and we're very excited to be able to move to our new house in June. So
congratulations, man.
It's really, and I think, and I'm going to give a lot of thanks to viewers out there that support me and support what I do, because it's helped me build a lifestyle out of what I do, enjoy teaching. And this new venture for us is going to open up doors again to further pursue the other ideas I have in terms of my education. I want to have, what we're going to do is when we move into our new place, we're going to be establishing a dedicated space or create a space where I'm going to do my presentations and have this professional layout, and it's going to change, and it's going to, I just feel better about everything.
Yeah, that's great, Daniel. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. You definitely have a teaching style. Like, you definitely have that calm persona, and something that I really need to work on. Like, because me and Z Wade were talking about, have you ever had a seminar, or would you ever do something like that? I know Z Wade did it, but I've never done anything like that. So interesting that you have that character that you can do that. And great. That's awesome. I never thought of revenue from teaching, but maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get passive income too, which is awesome.
Yeah. And there's people out there who's got this craving for knowledge, and I don't want to put platforms down, but there's a lot of educational and free stuff on YouTube. It's a fantastic platform for all kinds of content and to learn and various skills from marketing to photography. But what's happening now, unfortunately, is that there's a saturation of people using the platform as a means to sell something. If you know what I mean. It's not designed to teach. And a lot of the guys who's major players on YouTube tend to do product reviews, and people get sucked into that whole void, and I think they're getting educated about something. Now, while it might be about reviews about camera gear, which might be useful for people out there, there isn't a lot that will teach you specific things like, why do I specifically shooting this light? Why do I specifically choose this way to dress or style or color and those types of things? That's kind of absent in that sense, because people, I don't know, it's just not something that you find regularly on YouTube. You won't find somebody's specific style of teaching a specific process as such. It's all very generic.
Yeah, no,
you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I was in that realm. That's where I was. I was in the gear, and I just finally had to say, like, this has to come like 2% of what I do. I want to shoot.
Something that I've noticed, and it changes so quickly. If you search specific topics on YouTube, you'll suddenly find that all of those topics are populating your channel timeline, if you know what I mean. So if I search marketing, next minute my whole feed is like just filled with marketing, and this guy's marketing that, and this guy's doing this and that, and it's all generic. It's just everybody's got that same message, and you know, some things that I've seen quite new is AI. Gosh.
Oh no.
Chat GTP, AI this, AI that. How you can make $30,000 per month using AI technology, and everybody's like jumping on that bandwagon. Is like, guys, come on, really?
Do you have a pulse? And can you press a button? You can make $9 million every 3 seconds.
Yeah, and it's very far from the truth. I can attest to that. It's a hard slog to earn passive income. You know, it's not passive.
Yeah.
It's a passive product, but the amount of work that you'd have to put in to generate a sustainable income is huge.
You'll never get your labor back. I told Vahagn that we'll never get our labor back from YouTube.
Well, hopefully this podcast grows, and you know, it'd be good, because this is what you know, you're hearing directly from photographers. I mean, this is perfect for beginners. You saw Daniel's work on the screen. Daniel is a true artist, portrait photographer, extraordinaire. I love his work, I love his colors, I love everything about it. I know for me, the most important thing for a portrait is capturing that expression. I know other people, they might say, oh, the sharpness. Other people might say the background blur. Some people might say the model, whatever. My thing is that expression, that perfect moment, because everybody's face is different. And everybody's face looks good in a certain way. Just capturing that split moment is what I do. You're amazing.
Thanks so much. I just want to add in here, you know, I with the clique of people that we have around here, and me being disconnected so much from the photographers in my area, such because of the language barrier, it's kind of it's a nice thing to be able to talk to you guys out there in this way, and you know, be able to share common interests in this field. It's really nice. So, you know, I really look forward to doing this once again in the future, because it's my little get out of the box as such.
No, definitely. I enjoy talking with you. And you're a working photographer and a educator, so that's a big time. You're a big time dude, man. And you're living it. Your work speaks for itself, and you're actually making a living doing it, and a true professional for sure. And you enjoy it. That's the most important thing. Hey, by the way, what time is it right now? Oh, it's way late. But what time is it? It's 2 in the morning over there.
Yeah, I'm in the future here. I'm that TikTok time traveler, by the way. I'm just, if you've heard of him. I'm talking from the future here.
So how far ahead is that? Because like, if you enjoy engaging with other photographers, you know, Vahagn Chuck's Wednesday live stream might be a much more comfortable time for him to hop on and just hang out, and you know, if he's got time.
That's what I was just gonna get to, because 9 a.m. What is it? What's this Wednesday live stream start at 9 a.m.
11 my time. So right now it's we can figure this out. 8:30.
And the wait begins the math.
Yeah, but
it's actually 2:35 here, 2:36 in the morning.
Okay, so it's currently 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. It's 6 hours. So if Chuck goes live at 11 o'clock my time, that's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That'd be like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, something like that.
Yeah. Do you have a day job, Daniel, or photography is your main gig?
Oh, that is my sole income. This is what it's been for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And I think this is probably why I've dedicated all the time to it. And I think this is something that we might want to have a discussion about on another podcast, is the balance of family life and career. Because when you venture into this kind of full-time gig, it changes the dynamics of how you work and family life.
Mm-hmm.
That's where so you can hop on Chuck's live stream because you're your own boss. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
You should go check it out. You know Chuck. Remember Chuck?
Yeah, I remember Chuck, yes.
Do you ever listen to his live streams?
I haven't, no. It's just because of, you know, what we've been going through and making all these changes and stuff. So
okay. His channel's AP Studios, and you might want to check out his Wednesday morning. So what Z Wade said about your time.
Yeah, if you can do me a favor, if you can message me on Facebook or wherever, or ping me a link, and I'll definitely go and look in there.
Definitely, I will. No, definitely.
We better wrap it up here before Z Wade explodes because he needs to drain the lizard off camera there. But folks, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. You've been listening to Photology, hosted by myself, V and Z Wade. Special thanks to Daniel Venter for being our guest today. And please, in the description below, make sure you check out all of Daniel Venter's social. That means his website, social. Give him some love. Same thing for Z Wade. Special thanks to him for coming on today. Check in the bio below. If you'd like to check out some of his photography and videography and some of his very fun videos. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and have a great day.
Dude, that was awesome. Perfect.
Thank you. Super guys.
Subscribe. Thank you for watching.
Is that Joe Man's assigned task on this podcast as the outro? Because that was smooth, man. That was like
that was rocking.
That was clean.
I should have done the voice.
Thank you for tuning in today to Version 98.5 The Pulse.
Hey, that was awesome. Daniel, thank you so much. Your work is awesome. Z-Wade, Z-Wade Photo on YouTube, Z-Wade Photo, Joe Man's Land on YouTube, and Vahagraphy on YouTube. If you like this podcast, go ahead and subscribe, like, and we'll see you next week for a new podcast. This was episode 2. We'll see you on episode 3. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you,
Third time's a charm.
Guys.
My pleasure.
See ya.
Ciao, guys.